It is said that Mexican drug cartels are armed with weapons bought legally in the United States and smuggled into Mexico.
So they want to talk about the economy, and they worry about guns going across the border. They say 90%. You got to prove that one to me. So if they're worried about all the guns going across the border, why don't they worry about all the money going across the border? Because these workers illegally in the workplace, they're sending that money back to Mexico.
The Obama administration announced plans to crack down on the smuggling of drugs and money flowing from the United States into Mexico to help fuel the violence by Mexican drug cartels.
President Calderon has been very courageous in taking on these drug cartels. We've got to also take some steps, even as he is doing more to deal with the drug cartels sending drugs into the United States. We need to do more to make sure that illegal guns and cash aren't flowing back to these cartels.
Sheriff Arpaio believes that the measure won't help alleviate the problem, and the fact that the guns come from the U.S. is just a statement being used to shift the blame from Mexico to the U.S.
They seem to be shifting the blame now to the United States, causing all the violence in Mexico all has to do with guns that are being allegedly brought into Mexico. I'm sure that all the guns in Mexico don't come from the United States.
As the violence in Phoenix spreads, Sheriff Arpaio insists that it has nothing to do with smuggling drugs or the drug cartels, and everything to do with illegal immigration and human smuggling instead, and that the two are not correlated.
I see a shift in emphasis, and the reason you're going to see the drug cartels, the drugs, they don't want to talk about all the kidnappings and murders in Maricopa County, Phoenix, that has to do with the illegal immigration. We have people murdered, kidnapped, shot in the head, tied up, not because of drugs, because they didn't pay the smuggler.
Well, Joy Olson, in the last segment we were talking about whether it's possible to separate out illegal immigration from the drug conflict. Now add on guns. Luckily, guns are not an emotional issue in the United States. But this just makes the conversation and any political response more complicated, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I don't want to leave the impression that I think drugs and illegal migration are exactly the same phenomena and should be dealt with in the same way. I don't agree with that. And when the speaker was just talking about money going back to Mexico, talking about drug money going back to Mexico and money that a person makes who may be in the country illegally, who sends back to their family, those are two radically different phenomena. The U.S. can do more to go after illegal drug money that is coming from the United States into Mexico. Those kinds of things that the U.S. can do, and go after weapons bought in the U.S. that are illegal in Mexico. So you can't buy them in Mexico. They don't sell them in stores. High caliber automatic weapons, for example. Those are things that the U.S. Issues the U.S. should take on, and things we can do to help Mexico deal with the violence it confronts.
Politically, does it make it a tougher debate to have in the United States? The involvement of drug sensitivities of guns, sensitivities about the Second Amendment, efforts to control the flow of weapons.
Oh, it's a horrendous problem to talk about politically. What we're dealing with here, you've got gun control, illegal migration, and then drugs. I mean, the U.S. has been politically been unable to talk reasonably about the drug consumption problem here in the U.S. and what's not working in terms of government policies to help reduce the demand of drugs.
Go ahead.
I think the idea of mixing the Second Amendment in the debate, it leads to a false debate, because one thing is to have a right to bear a weapon, guns at home as an American citizen. A very different one is to have a right to export weapons without license.
But those guns begin life, if you will, as legal guns.
Certainly.
Because they're acquired legally in stores from retailers and then bundled for transshipment to other places.
That's correct. But there's the chain that links from the seller of the gun all the way back to the drug dealer, or the shock troops of the drug cartels in Mexico City, is closely linked together. New York Times has shown a couple of in-depth stories on some of these gun outlets in Arizona, another case of an Egyptian American who'd been at it for the last 5 years, selling hundreds of AK-47s, AR-15s, and he knew all the links that connected him back to Mexico. There are close to 7,000 outlets in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and California. I think that where the US can really beef up its contribution is on the customs area. How can you stem the physical flow from the arms, southward bound? That is the issue, and by far the most important one compared to the issue of decreasing drug demand use. That's a 15, 30-year plan, important to start now with children. But in the very short term, the only way to stop the bloodbath in Mexico or reduce its rate is by controlling, as you correctly pointed out, 90% of the more than 12,000 high-caliber weapons confiscated last year in Mexico could be traced to one of these outlets along the border. So what the person was saying in the clip is incorrect.